In Mike's assets, there is also a debt of $680. If you inherit, you will also take on this debt. Upon hearing the lawyer's words about inheritance after her husband's death, John's face changed its color. What? What does that mean? If I inherit, does that mean I take on the debt? Due to the recession, it seems the company's management had deteriorated significantly. Mike had been frequently visiting the bank to secure funds. Then John clicks his tongue. What the hell? Not only was he a drunkard, but he also left no inheritance, just a worthless parent. I don't need such a company. Rose is also nodding vigorously. If inheriting means taking on debt, then I'll just renounce the inheritance. That settles it. As John and Rose hastily try to leave, the attorney stops them in a panic. Wait, please. John, you can't just renounce the inheritance. Huh? Upon hearing the attorney's explanation, John and Rose turn pale. I am Emily. Our family consists of 3 people. My husband Mike, my son John, and myself. Mike and I have been together since our student days. From his student days, Mike had passionately told me about his dream to start his real estate brokerage firm. To achieve this, Mike diligently studied the mechanism and communication of real estate brokerage. While working part-time and saving money, Mike studied for a real estate license and also attended entrepreneurship seminars. Eventually, his dream became my dream too. After intense studying and obtaining his real estate license, Mike graduated from university and joined a major real estate brokerage firm to gain practical experience. It was around this time he promised to me, I will start a business in the future. Will you support my dream with me? Having witnessed Mike's efforts up close, I had no reason to refuse his proposal. 3 years after our marriage, Mike finally established his dream real estate brokerage company. That same year, our son John was born. I often reassured John, who seldom saw his father, saying, Your dad is working hard for the family. By the time John started elementary school, he began to understand that his father was the president of a company. Mom, today I told my friends about Dad's job, saying, My dad is a president. They were all so envious. The fact that he was the son of a president changed how everyone looked at him, which seemed to shock John considerably. After that, John often boasted about his parent being a president to others. John, you're an only child, so you'll become the president in the future, right? That's awesome. Being praised by his friends, John became complacent, thinking there was no need to study hard if he was going to inherit the company. He began to slack off in his studies. By the time John was in middle school, I was working with Mike at the company, leaving John most of the day. John started to go out at night, taking advantage of his parents' absence. John, where were you yesterday? Are you keeping up with your homework? Shut up, I don't need to study. During his rebellious phase, John was only annoyed whenever I tried to talk to him. Mike's company gradually got on track, and the number of employees increased, but Mike's business remained unchanged. With nightly drinking parties for information exchange with competitors, entertainment, and dinners with banks for mortgage consultations, Mike, who was not strong with alcohol, became physically exhausted. Unaware of his father's struggles, John continued to attend a high school known for underachievers in the neighborhood, spending his time playing with friends rather than studying. John, you shouldn't spend all your time playing. You should think about your future too. John just nodded in response to what I said. Future? I'm the only son, so I'll inherit Dad's company, right? My future is already set. Even if you're going to inherit, you should study more, like your father did. Follow Dad? The dad who just goes out drinking every day? Maybe I should train to be better at drinking instead of studying, right? Your dad doesn't drink because he wants to. That's his job, right? Then it should be easy without studying, Wanted to tell John about Mike's hard work and efforts to earn his qualifications and start his business, but Mike said, John will understand someday. Let's leave it to him. So I held back my words. Unlike Mike's time, there are many employees with real estate qualifications now, so qualifying is not a necessity to be a president. However, I was always worried about John taking the president's role too lightly. So when John became a senior in high school and said, I want to study management at university, Mike and I, believing he finally wanted to study, happily joined hands. Due to not studying before, John couldn't get into a high-ranking university, but he managed to get into a 4-year college. However, once he started college, his enthusiasm for studying business faded, and he played around more than ever. I want to study at university seemed to be just an excuse to avoid working immediately and enjoy the freedom of being a college student. John, planning to inherit Mike's company, had no intention of job hunting and started going out drinking every night after turning 20. John, if you intend to join your father's company, you should at least have the same level of knowledge as other new employees. No matter how much I cautioned, it seemed not to reach John's ears. I, the next president, am different from ordinary employees. A president just needs to drink and maintain good relationship. No need to study. But your father, no matter how much you defended Dad, it's useless. John cut me off when I tried to tell him about Mike's efforts. Respect a dad who comes home drunk every night? I can't. I'm better at drinking than him, so maybe I'm more suited to be the president, right? John completely ridiculed his father. Unable to change John's feelings towards Mike, John ended up joining Mike's company. A few months after joining, John suddenly brought home a woman named Rose, a classmate from university. Dad, Mom, let me introduce you. This is Rose, my girlfriend. Nice to meet you. Rose greeted us casually without any hesitation. Actually, I intend to marry Rose. What? You just started working and now marriage? I involuntarily objected to John's shocking statement, and he spoke with slight discomfort. Actually, Rose is pregnant. It's my child. Both Mike and I were at loss for words. I understand that you want to oppose us because we are young and have no money, but I want to raise this child with John. Faced with such a statement, there was no way we could oppose it. I understand, but your body will go through a lot from now on, won't it? How about living with us in this house? Besides the physical aspect, it would be difficult for the two of them, who had just started working, to spend money on a new home. However, Rose rejected my offer. Living with a mother-in-law would only add stress and be worse for my health. We are going to rent an apartment near the company, so could you at least pay the rent for that? It was an audacious proposal, but John agreed with Rose, saying, it's best for the baby in her stomach. Under the condition that it would be until John became independent, I reluctantly agreed to pay the rent from my savings. Far from becoming more responsible with the prospect of fatherhood, John continued to slack off at work, boasting, I'm the president's son. looking down on colleagues and being rebellious towards superiors. President, about your son, could you please do something about him? Honestly, his work attitude is too poor in every department, making it impossible to guide him. I'm sorry. Mike, already worn out from handling external business matters and complaints about his son, was physically and mentally exhausted. Despite this, Mike continued to socialize at night and, having drunk too much one evening, suffered a heart attack in the bath and collapsed. By the time he was taken to the hospital, he was already unconscious due to an acute myocardial infarction and never returned. While I was frantically starting the funeral preparations, considering the future of the company, Rose sat leisurely among the other attendees. Rose, could you please help serve tea to the guests? Huh? I'm pregnant. I can do that. Despite it being a simple task, Rose stubbornly refused to help. Yeah, don't make a pregnant Rose do such things. Instead of reprimanding Rose, John began to blame me. He wanted to stay by Rose's side, so he rested with her. Realizing it would be faster to do it myself than attend to them, I completed all the funeral preparations and cleaned up alone. When I finally returned home and took a moment to relax, John and Rose, already changed into fancy clothes, visited. Why are you dressed like that? What's going on? I asked, and John answered rapidly. We are going to a party now. A party? Yeah, it's my inauguration as president party. I couldn't believe my ears. It was outrageous to hold a party right after his own father's funeral. What are you thinking? Today was your father's funeral, wasn't it? What are you talking about, Mom? We can't leave the company without a president, so I'm taking over immediately. You should be grateful. How can you celebrate right after your father's death? Don't you have any gratitude towards your father? What would he think if he saw this from heaven? Who cares about the feelings of the dead, right? And what did Dad even do to deserve thanks? Just one drinking, right? I wish he hadn't acted so important over a job anyone could do. As I was shocked by his words, John continued. And in the end, dying because of alcohol, that was stupid. Well, now I, who am stronger and more sociable with alcohol, will do much better. It's good that the changeover happened quickly, right? Outraged by the disrespect towards Mike, who had worked hard to achieve his dreams, anger rose within me. All right, if you're going to say that, then do as you please. Upon hearing this, John smirked and said, Then I'll do just that. Then he casually took out money that was in a dresser. Wait, what are you going to do with that money? This money will be added to the party fund. Dad's savings sure came in handy, right? I started to object but swallowed my words. Seeing my silence, John and Rose left our house, laughing loudly. A few days later, John and I were summoned by the lawyer Mike and consulted about the company. When I requested the lawyer and John to come to our family home, John arrived with Rose. As everyone gathered, the lawyer began to speak. Today, we've convened to discuss Mike's inheritance. The legal heirs are his wife, Emily, and eldest son, John. There's no will, so by law, the inheritance would be split equally between the two of you. Hearing this, John and Rose's eyes lit up. The lawyer continued, However, among Mike's assets, there is also a debt of $680,000. If you inherit, you will also take on this debt. John's face changed color at this. What? What does that mean? If I inherit, does that mean I take on the debt? Due to the recession, it seems the company's management had deteriorated significantly. Mike had been frequently visiting the bank to secure funds. Then John clicked his tongue. What the hell? Not only was he a drunkard, but he also left no inheritance. Just a worthless parent. I don't need such a company. Rose is also nodding vigorously. If inheriting means taking on debt, then I'll just renounce the inheritance. That settles it. As John and Rose hastily try to leave, the attorney stops them in a panic. Wait, please, John, you can't just renounce the inheritance. Huh? I had informed the lawyer while organizing Mike's cash asset at home that John had taken Mike's saving from the dresser for party funds on the day of the funeral. Taking and using the deceased assets for personal use constitutes an acceptance of the inheritance. At that moment, John lost his right to renounce the inheritance. Hearing the lawyer's explanation, John turns pale. You knew about this, didn't you, Mom? Why didn't you stop me? I was opposed to you holding a party on the day of your father's funeral, remember? You went ahead with it anyway, against my advice. But still, well, it's too late for regrets now. Glancing at the disheartened John and Rose, the lawyer turns to speak to me. Emily, what will you do? I'll renounce the inheritance, of course. Mike had told me if anything happened to him or me, I should feel free to do so. Hearing this, John hastily clings to me. Wait, Mom, if you renounce it, I'll be left to shoulder $680,000 in debt alone. That's impossible. At least share half the burden. I refuse. You've always ridiculed your father, haven't you? Saying, a president's job is just drinking around, an easy job anyone can do. Why don't you try it yourself? Turning $100 million debt into a profit is impossible, you know that. Your father was also taught it was impossible to start a real estate brokerage at a young age, yet he achieved it with incredible effort. I can't forgive you for mocking him without even trying to understand that. Realizing that pleading with me was futile, John turns to Rose, cursing. Damn, to be treated like this by my father in the end. Rose, let's work together as a couple and prove them wrong. Once you've given birth, you will need to start working right away. To John's enthusiastic words, Rose responds coldly. What? Are you joking? I married you thinking you'd be the next president. I don't need a husband drowning in debt. I want a divorce. Divorce? What about the baby in your stomach? Can you raise it alone? Rose laughed loudly at John's words. Did you believe I was pregnant? That was a lie. I just said that so you'd commit to the marriage and your parents would easily accept it. You tricked me. It's your fault for being divorced without even checking my maternity notebook. I was going to say I had a miscarriage soon, anyway. As Rose laughs triumphantly, John crumbles. John ends up shouldering $680,000 in debt alone. He tries to win over the banks he had connections with for additional loans, but his impractical approach only results in losing their trust and even the existing loans being cut off. Employees, sensing they couldn't follow John as a successor, had already been showing intentions to resign. Realizing the company was in decline, they began leaving one after another. It was only a matter of time before the company went bankrupt. Unable to reduce his debts, but only increasing them, John eventually had no choice but to declare a bankruptcy. As soon as John's friends who had been around him only because he was the prospective company president heard about his bankruptcy and debt, they all drifted away. Left alone without family, wife, or friends, John now leads a lethargic life, surviving day by day through part-time jobs. After divorcing John, Rose is actively involved in matchmaking, trying to marry into wealth again. However, her deceptive tactics, including faking a pregnancy and demanding money, have led to a lawsuit against her for fraud. Meanwhile, I decided to honor my husband's legacy and start a new real estate brokerage company using my savings. As I began preparations alone, former employees, having heard of my resolve, returned one after another, offering their assistance. We want to work with Emily, who understands the founder's vision better than anyone. We'd love to work with you again. Together with the employees Mike had nurtured, and using the know-how I gained working alongside my husband, I set out to create a new company that would bring us closer to what Mike had envisioned. Former business contacts, knowing I had been Mike's steadfast support, willingly collaborated with me again, allowing for a smooth start to the business. The bank, impressed with my business plan, invested a substantial amount of funds. The success of the company isn't just due to my efforts alone. It's thanks to the connections Mike had built up over the years. I believe that my husband is watching over me from heaven, and with this belief, I am determined to work hard to grow the company even more.